What is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Super excited for this episode, of course, as you know, with Holly Garner of Igdc. This is going to be a really, really fun episode, no matter where you live in the world, no matter what's going on. I think the emphasis of this episode is all about community, and super, super excited for that. One little note I wanted to let you know, if you didn't know, if you haven't heard these podcasts and you're new to the podcast, we've got free workshops going on in our Facebook group all about building a creative business. So we kind of use the motif as photography, for myself, right? And then our guests, who are usually photographers, videographers, designers, creatives, etc. And they're all freelance or going full-time or own their own businesses. And it can be really useful for you to have some insight on what to do if that's something that you're passionate about. So we offer those free workshops in our Facebook group for free. So our next one's going to be on pricing yourself. 1, for sustainability. 2, to check if you can go full-time and what you need to know to go full-time. And then 3, it's just kind of a check, even if you've been in business for a little while, to check your profitability. Is your business as good as you think it is? Is it doing better than you think it is? It's really something that I do probably about once a year now, just to check myself, see where things are at, especially pre-COVID. If I didn't have this data, I would not feel as comfortable as I do now going into, the next few years, hopefully. So really, really cool. I would love to invite you to come out to that. It's going to be free. Just go to togfb.com and you can get access to all of our past workshops where we've talked about the sales process, getting new leads, how to book people, Pinterest, albums, etc. Everything you need to know to not just be a great wedding vendor or creative, but to do it in a really good way that fills your soul rather than sells it. So really, really fun. Would invite you to do that. Our next one, pricing, is going to be Tuesday, September 29th at 7 p.m. EST. So come hang out, or EDT. Anyway, somebody's going to email me about that. Come hang out. Would love to have you. Join the community. Just hang out. And again, it's all free. It's all virtual. There will be a replay, but you got to be in the group to access it. So come hang out. Would love to have you. Our guest today is Holly Garner, basically the founder and head lady of Igdc, which is a Instagram community in DC, the largest Instagram community in DC, and I think the most welcoming and nice Instagram community in DC, which is really, really cool. She talks about everything that they went through to start this kind of program. This is before Instameets were even a thing. And I know when I moved here, it was just really, really helpful. So you might be like, oh, I'm not from DC. Does this even matter? But I think it'd be really, really cool for people who have been to an Instameet or have never been to one. We talk about how to foster community during this time when most people are home. What's that look like? So just an all-out incredible story from Holly. Igdc has over 70,000 followers on Instagram, or 69,000 followers, but we rounded up here. And they just have a really cool, supportive community. And they have been there for me. They've been there for lots of photographers in our city. So without any further ado, here's Igdc's founder, Holly Garner. Here we go. Holly, so good to finally get you on. I feel like when I first started the Bearded Talk podcast, 3 years ago, you were one of the people I wanted to have on and talk to you. And now it is finally here, and we're finally making this happen. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. It is awesome to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. I know it was a struggle. You film at times I could never do, so I'm glad we could. Thankful for COVID.
Yeah, it is
once,
a silver lining, and I can be Jennifer Lawrence, and you are Bradley Cooper. It is totally fine. I love it. So I want to talk about this is a very DC episode for people who might not be familiar, but it's going to apply, I feel like, everywhere. And because we all love Instagram, it's very fun, and I think for us, we met through, an Instameet, which 7 years ago, everyone was like, oh, this is very, happens once in a blue moon. And, so I want to talk about, the Instagram community in DC. And then I want to talk specifically about, the Instagram community that I would say, you're in charge of, or you facilitate now, whatever those technical terms are for you. All that to say, tell me a little bit about yourself, and tell me a little bit about Igdc, the community that we have here in DC.
Sure. So we are the city's first Instagram community. We started in October. Officially, we started in October 2011. Instagram had launched in October 2010, and I was sort of a early adopter of Instagram. I got on pretty quickly. I just happened on it in the App Store and thought, like, this sounds pretty cool. I had liked photography in high school. I was always the kid in my friend group that was taking photos of everybody and what we were doing. So I downloaded it and spent some time on it and started picking up a camera again. But was really intimidated by the social media part of it, like sharing. And that's why I didn't put my name up. It's why it's Go Lightly and not, my Holly Garner. And just sort of slowly got into it until I was comfortable enough that I was considering like getting into the social part of it. So I started doing research, trying to reach out to see what other local photographers were around that I might connect with. And back then, I think I followed a lot of people from California and the Midwest, and not so many, a few people in DC, but not too many. So back then, Instagram used meetup.com to help promote and help get communities find each other. And so I looked to see what DC group was there, and there was nobody organizing anything, but there was an account. And then, meetup.com, anybody could post and promote an Instameet or a meetup. And so I put something down, like a happy hour, because Instagram used to do a twice a year worldwide Instameet where they would promote and encourage communities and photographers to connect on a specific weekend. And I think when I found this, it was just like that next week or something. So there wasn't any time, and I didn't know what an Instameet was. So I just put up a post about a happy hour to see if anybody was interested, if anybody wanted to show up and talk about Instagram. And so 15 people showed up, and we had a great time. We went to Bar Pilar over on 14th Street. And some of those people are still active in the community, and some have moved away, some have kids, they just don't have time. But as we were leaving, everybody sort of collectively was like, great, let's do this again. Like, they kept looking at me like, what are you going to do next? And so it just sort of fell to me naturally to, if I wanted to see these people again, then I would have to just keep doing these. So then I started really doing my research and posted, I don't remember how long until I did the next event, but I posted a walk around U Street. I called it Glass and Graffiti or something like that, because it was back before, before the Wonder Bread factory was renovated, and you could just walk around and, there was so much to see, grit and commerce.
Lots of color. U Street is, for people listening, U Street is Black Broadway. Traditionally, and it houses Ben's Chili Bowl, the only business during the 1964 riots after MLK's assassination to survive and be open, serving both black protesters and cops. So like that area is just so famous. Sorry, that's my like random U Street fact, but it's like that area is super cool.
I appreciate it. U Street, I mean, there's so much rich history there, and there's so much to see and just do, and wandering that neighborhood is very inspiring. So part of me wanted to use Instagram as a way to reconnect with DC, because I had moved here 9 years earlier for grad school, and I sort of, like everybody else, I lived in my grad school bubble for a while, and I just went to and from home into school. And then once I graduated, like I realized, like, all those people you meet in grad school, you don't really connect with, because you're only seeing each other every once in a while, and you all have lives outside, and they move away when they're done. So I didn't know a whole lot of people here. It was a way for me to re-explore DC, because all I had really done up until then was, every tourist thing that you do when you have company come to town. Take them down to the mall, go to the museums, etc. So So I just started organizing more events, and back then you used a hashtag so that you could all find each other later. And so the first hashtag was IGDC. We just did Instagram DC because we wanted to keep it short and simple, and that just became what we were known as. So yeah, the rest is history. People just kept bringing friends with them when they would come, and it just grew word of mouth. And
that's awesome. Yeah, I remember seeing, it was one of those things where, 2013 to 2015-ish, you'd see, at least on my end, you could, and not to take away from, there are some hashtags that are just so original that make so much sense, and not that IGTC doesn't qualify, but in your brain, at least for me, I'd probably seen the worldwide Instagram thing, or something like that. And so I think it's the hashtag at the beginning might be something somebody tried. Back then, we tried different hashtags. We made up stuff. I know for me, I tried this Visco DC thing. I was like, well, I like Visco, I like DC, and it's just photos of the monument, or the Capitol with the Visco filters on it. But so it was one where you might not know you're even starting in the community, you're adding to it or whatever. And what you would see is the smartest people around would create at the bare minimum what it is, but IGTC is much larger than this now, a curation account of that hashtag, of what does that mean? And then eventually it starts evolving, and I feel like eventually you guys there was a time when I felt like you guys were doing a meet every month, and that was really cool, because I think the overall arcing thing of what we're all talking about right now too is, if you live in a city, you have probably been lonely. People don't realize, you move to DC or New York City or Baltimore or LA or wherever, and I think there is a crowd that everything clicks. They find their people. It happens, and this is not degrading any of those people either. Awesome. I wish that happened for all of us. And then there's some people where it's like, I need to find my crew. I need to find some people who are, we had a lot of photographers ranging from, people who wanted to be professionals like me, or I was like, I would love to make this my real job, to people that are like, wow, what a bunch of people that like taking photos, right? Because we all have the same interests, versus I joke with my wife, if we go on vacation, I want to get up at sunrise every day to take photos of sunrise, right? She's like, we're on vacation, Adam. We're not, it's not what we're doing. And
I'm kind of with her on that
exactly.
one.
But it's like, why did we come to South America if we're not going to do this? No. And so I think that was really cool for me, was finding that community, that like-minded community, especially at that time too in the Instagram world, we were still okay with messing up. We were still okay with imperfect feeds. We were still okay with not knowing what was going on. Stories wasn't a thing. Now we have Reels at the time of this recording.
I'm always last to the new changes. I haven't even looked at Reels at this point.
Sometimes I feel like for running my business now, I've been full time for 6 years, and it's one of those things where there are days when I'm like, oh, I'm still just a freelancer. I'm by myself. Sure, I can mobilize quickly and move quickly. And there are other times when I treat it like it is this big brand, or not a big brand, but it's a brand. It has marketing, it has content calendar, it has scheduling, and I'm like, oh, I can't adapt to Reels as quickly as I'd like to, or I can't adapt to this feature or this technology or whatever. But it's just something different. What is something that you guys found through, starting an official account and starting to engage and feature more work and be, just more intentionality through that? I think, what were some of the things you saw beneficially from both the community and then other, partnerships or things that were able to happen? What was that like?
So everything we've done with IGDC, it really did develop organically. It never really, I wish I could say, I had a vision that I executed and we just went with it and it worked out beautifully, but it really was just sort of a trial and error. Let's try, we'll start holding these things. And every time we would hold an Instagram, an Instameet, at the end, I would try to share photos that other photographers had taken. And I just did all of this on my own personal Go Lightly account, because IGDC did not have an account yet, because someone else had that account. It was a local guy who was he always had a coming soon on the account. He was a graphic designer, and he was going to do something with it. I forget what it was. And it just sat dormant for a long time until I realized, like, I need to separate. This is getting bigger. It's becoming something more. I should probably separate it from my account, because back then I was posting other photographers' work from the meet. I would highlight them on my own account and be like, we love this. I love this shot from earlier today or whatever. So I reached out to him, and he was totally cool and was like, here, have it. Just awesome. Take it. You know, here's the password. And turned it over to me. And so after we had that, it became a little more deliberative. We could, you know, advertise easier. We could promote other people's work from the events easier. And then it just sort of evolved from there. It evolved because we weren't doing meets every month. We would do them more sporadically. They'd be every couple of months or something. So it's like, what do we do with this account up, you know, for the times that we're not having events? So then I started just featuring daily photos, and I really wanted to just feature one person a day. I wanted to be able to highlight one photographer and then have followers be able to find that person, go to their feed, see what he or she had done, and hopefully pick up a follower or two. So it really evolved into a give back to our community as well.
Yeah, no, totally. That makes perfect sense. It's one of those things where it's like you're going to have, you know, either a local DC person because they're seeing a portion of the city that they don't. I feel like that's something we all love in the city. Like when you see, there's the things that people think of when they see DC, and then there are places that we know, or even like U Street. You know, a lot of people who aren't from DC know what that is. You know, and the murals and the vibrancy and everything that's going on, or and so that's really, really, really cool. Tell me about as that account grew. You know, I feel like there were a few accounts, you know, leaders in the community, that kind of stuff, and as it built. What did that allow you to do? It felt like it turned into not just a photo featuring account, but you're able to, you know, again, either have some brand partnerships or whatever. It kind of became I wouldn't say it became a business by any means, you know, because it didn't feel like that. But it became probably like an official, like anything. Like if you start a club, you're like, hey, we need to, you know, buy pencils for this thing, you know, or whatever the digital equivalent of that for Instagram was. It was able to do some partnerships. So what was that like? You know, you got some branding people, some friends.
It was great. I mean, again, the account it's never been a money-making account. We don't take advertising dollars. Every once in a while someone will ask, do you take, you know, ads on do you promote ads on your site? We don't do any of that. So every collaboration we had, or every brand that we worked with, were brands that came to me and asked if we would be interested in doing something. So they might have very specific needs. They want to promote something. But I just always try to approach requests like that to see how I can, if it's beneficial to the community. If it's just going to a location and buying lunch, that's not really beneficial to the community. But if it's, you know, taking a tour of a new big market, something like Union Market or something while it's under construction, that's interesting. And it gets the word out that, and we didn't do that collaboration, but I'm just an example. Or a museum has a new installation they want to promote. You know, they may ask us to bring in a group of photographers and check it out and then promote it on their feeds. So we do a lot of that. So during that, we made a lot of great connections in the community, a lot with big institutions like the Smithsonian and RAI and things like that, you know, as long as it's something that I think the photographers can benefit from and is interesting as a photographer to do, then I would entertain it. But if it was something that was just clearly like they just want us to use their app or something, then I always say no to those. So yeah, we've been very lucky. We've had a lot of great opportunities. big and small, and I try to entertain as many as I can to get people out. My goal is always ultimately to just get someone off their sofa and outside with the camera and explore the city, because we all get so stuck in our routines, and it's good to have some motivation to get out and explore. And so we just try to do that with our cameras.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's super cool. It makes sense. I wonder, what advice would you give for people who maybe pre-COVID, they had, some kind of smaller Instagram community, or maybe even a larger community, to how could they foster that, or outside of COVID, like what would the future of that account be? Would it be, not that this is not as romantic, but it's, hey, we're going to routinely meet every month or every 6 weeks or every 2 months or whatever that timeline is. And the goal is to just be a part. It's free to enter, at least most of everything, 95% of everything that was done. Like, what advice would you give for people who are looking to start that and maybe get momentum behind, a vision? I know we have a few other groups in DC that kind of do similar things. But what would your advice be for kind of fostering that community and furthering it forward?
Sure. From my experience, it was always, there were many moments where I got get weighed down by it and think like, why am I bothering doing this if no one's, I just feel like maybe it's not as interesting to people. But the biggest thing I did was just stick with it, because in the beginning, you're not going to have a lot of followers. You can't just create a community and the next day, 100 people are going to come to your event. So it's really about getting out there, just reiterating that we're here, that we're doing these events. This is our name. This is how you can join, being open to everybody, getting the word out, and just persisting with it. Just keep going. Don't get discouraged if, 5 people show up, because you can have a really great event with just 5 people. We had a portrait meet way back in the early days that only 3 people showed up, and it was at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. And I get it. A lot of people are intimidated by portraiture. It was back before, portraits were really on trend, and people were nervous about it. They didn't want their photos taken, and they didn't want to take photos of people. So, and I think it was during, like, right before a hurricane hit, too. So the weather was terrible, but 3 people came and we had a great time, and it was a lot of fun. And, the takeaway initially was, oh, this didn't really succeed. Note to self, maybe portraits are too much right now. But we've had them since, and a lot of people have shown up, and you can't get discouraged if an idea doesn't seem to work. You just got to keep doing it because you enjoy it and you find fulfillment in it. And people will latch onto that, and they'll see that, and they'll likely be looking for the same things you're looking for, which is community and motivation and inspiration.
I think people, naturally draw towards good things, and it's like IGDC being, the biggest and kind of the most active Instagram community in DC. It's like, one, if you want to be in person, it's free, and even if you don't want to be in person, it's free. Like, the barrier to entry is so low. And I think too, like, we both are kind of into cameras, or like for me, I do it for the job, but it's like, I think almost every Instameet I've ever been to, I've just brought my phone, because like my camera feels like work, but I'm like, oh, it's fun to just hang out. And I'm an extrovert and obviously a talker. Like, that side of it was fun for me. And, and even in DC, people ask, even getting practical, but it's like, it solves so many problems where it's more than Instagram. People are like, hey, how do I meet people? Or, hey, like, I don't drink. How can I meet a date, or online dating, right? Like, I'm sure there are probably IGDC couples that have formed, out of it.
I'm one of those.
That's awesome.
I met my husband on an Instameet, actually. I
love that. So it's, that's one of those cool things that I think too, people don't think about, but it's like, it's such an attractive, cool thing.
Absolutely. I think I'm always amazed by the people who come up to me at an event and say, I've been wanting to come to one for so long, and I just didn't know what to expect, or I was nervous because I didn't know anybody. And then they come and they find that we're all very friendly and we're all really welcoming. And, there's always someone to talk to, and there's always a variety of topics. If you're a gearhead, you can talk to fellow gearheads. If you just are new to cameras, you can shoot with your phone, with a friend. And so it's a great way to meet people. I've met some amazing friends that have been friends for 10 years now.
I love that. One question I have was when you guys first started, is you were able to have a little bit of traction, with your first few meets, right? And even have people come out. Did you have a big personal account when you first started? Like, were you able to help kind of give that push? Or was there somebody you partnered with that had a decent size account that was able to help that push? Like, when did that start kind of helping, to get more than just, hey, I brought my spouse or I brought my partner, whatever?
Yeah, no, in the beginning there was no such thing as an influencer. It was not even a question. I had hardly any followers myself. And it just never even occurred to me to have someone to latch on that would help spread the word. It really was, I think that's such a way of thinking now, because, you do get unbelievable boost from that. If you have someone that you can help promote or whatever. But in the beginning, it just wasn't a factor. I don't remember how many followers I had in the beginning, but I think a good amount of people that follow IGDC probably have no idea who I am. I think they don't necessarily equate the account with a person. Or maybe they do. I don't know. If you come to an event, then obviously you're going to know who I am, because I always try to do a welcome intro. But I've always wanted that to be separate. I always wanted IGDC to be able to stand on its own and not be,
tied to a person.
Yeah, tied to a person, because I want it to be very inclusive, and I want it to be its own thing, and not have someone say, well, I don't like her photography. Why would I follow this or something, for example?
Sure, no, totally. I think too, that's like the big thing was at the beginning of it never felt like it was one person. Even for me, if like a year or two later when it starts forming, it never felt even obvious. It never even felt like, and I struggle with that too. I run my business account and I have like a podcast account, and I'm like, I'm still figuring out that dance sometimes, and like, and I think sometimes you talk to some people and they're like, Adam, you're in charge of both. It's fine. And I'm like, well, I don't want it to be this way, whatever. Or like, we just added 3 photographers to the Mace photography team. So I'm like, do I say we now more than I, all these like kind of silly things. But I think, it didn't feel like a person. But what I did notice in a good way is it felt like and maybe this is just like a guy from the church world seeing this, but it was like, oh, there's a core, longest core group that are all super friendly and fun, and it was fun to watch a lot of you kind of grow your own accounts all together at that same time. I think that was really cool. Or I forget what it was, like you could become suggested on Instagram, or you could it was very helpful for
suggested user curse.
Yeah, exactly. So as people were signing up for new Instagram, they'd be like, they'd see Holly or they see Andy or Phil or whatever, and it's and that was really cool. And it felt like, I think too, especially in a city like DC, we saw something run by multiple people, and it felt better than just seeing it run by one, where it's like, that's just a DC democracy thing. We just like seeing, single leaders, but that's so funny.
I think so. And I think it's hard to kind of delve into that rabbit's hole, because if you make it too much about you lose a certain level of, if you're building a community, you want that community to reflect the community, not one person. Yeah. So, I always wanted to sort of step aside and let it speak for itself. And, I'm happy to do all the work behind the scenes, but I don't expect people to come up and thank me for it.
Sure,
or, I just, as long as people are enjoying it and getting something from it, I'm happy as can be.
So now I want to ask you, COVID wise, like when was your last meetup, and are there any plans? Like, what is IGDC doing right now during pandemic? It doesn't feel great to have a large meetup. What does it look like right now?
So right before COVID, we were scheduled for an event with another group in town, and we were going to do sunrise at the tidal basin when that forget what it's called, the moon and the sun all line up.
Not the eclipse though, right?
No, it wasn't the eclipse. I have to go back in my email. I can't remember what it was called.
I know what you're talking about.
But yeah, so you could only see it in sunrise, and so we kept holding on to, I kept talking to Joe Newman and Jeff Livingston. We were all three doing this together. We kept, emailing each other, like, what do you think? Do you think we should cancel it? Maybe let's hang on. Let's see how this goes. It was right before Cherry Blossom. So yeah, the event would have been one Saturday or Sunday during the Cherry Blossom peak. And so we were really reluctant to cancel it because people were looking forward to it, and it was going to be this, really great event that doesn't happen all the time. And then at the end, we just, we were like, I think it's better that we cancel it because we can't have large groups. This is looking really dangerous. Yeah. And so we ended up canceling it. So I think that would have been our last. That would have been in March. And then before that, I don't even remember what was our one before that. So yeah, it's been a while, and I keep thinking, I found myself a few times this week, especially thinking about when all of this passes, like what will we do? Yeah. Will we do some giant event? Will we team up with somebody to really go all out and try to welcome people back, to the streets and to social life? And so we'll probably try to do something like that, but who knows when or what that would be. Yeah. Until then, we're continuing on with the daily features. And in the beginning, we were really trying to highlight creatives at home and encourage. We were doing it through stories and saved highlights, which are still up and you can find still on IGDC. Yeah. But we just reached out to photographers that I was seeing, I'd see people doing really creative, interesting things while they were locked down at home. And I just would send them a DM and ask, would you be willing to share this on IGDC? And we're trying to encourage people. So we made it a series. We did a week of, food things, and we did a week of, at-home photography. We did a week of how to stay safe. Sure. And we tried to put out lots of information. And then, when the protests started, we tried to elevate things that were happening around the city so that people could find information and, stay safe doing it, whatever they were participating with. So we've been trying to do that. I have one more story I need to put up that we asked someone to do for us. And we'll probably try to revisit that a little bit and maybe highlight some places that are starting to reopen so that people know what to expect now that businesses are opening their doors again.
Yeah. No, I think that'd be cool. One of the things I was thinking about is and obviously you have to kind of filter that, but I wonder if there are certain restaurants or restaurant groups that would be willing to, advertise that they are open or that they have safe practices or whatever. Because I feel like there's and I feel bad for the restaurants because they have to do this, but it's like they have to earn scared people's trusts, of is your restaurant safe to eat out in, or whatever the couple, or what, not the couple, my wedding world, whatever a person's personal safety awareness guidelines are. Like for my wife and I, probably not going indoors with anybody else, for the time being. But other people might sit out at a restaurant, or eat outside. We're probably fine with that, But I wonder, if you could have, maybe restaurants or something like that partner, and then maybe if you wanted we're just doing this live, if they could if you can keep that money or give that money to a fund or something like that, that could be cool. Because then you're, kind of helping the local economy, but then also helping whatever that charity money goes to. I think that's cool. But something I was thinking about, not related to that, because that was like not even thinking. I wonder for like IG communities right now, like it might feel a little silly, but I was thinking about like how people now, at least in DC, I feel like you can go out alone. I feel like you can go out or with your household. And like, I wonder if there was something where people could share their perspective or something they're doing, or a terrible word for Instagram, but a place of respite, in the district, that they've had during quarantine, or what's brought them peace during this time, or something like that. Maybe all at the same time, or all at the same day, or with a very specific hashtag or something like that. Because I feel like, you guys are probably still seeing people posting, obviously with IGDC, but it's like, it's not as connected as like, hey, here's our initiative, or something like that. And I think that's, it's kind of even more so. We're in a world right now where it's like we have to embrace that people are by themselves, ironically, and we can't bring them together yet. So it's like, hey, we're actually going to roll with this. So that was one of my random ideas. And I was like, oh, that might be cool just to see like what was bringing you joy during this time, or everybody.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. We did something that I forgot to mention. We did do a bingo card. I don't know if you saw some of the bingo things going around, with different accounts. So we did our own and put it up on stories so that people could do it. And then we really just tried to do entries that people could do on their own, that they could do just walking around their neighborhood, because we all needed to get out and, just get some fresh air. So we tried to limit it so that everybody could do it without feeling uncomfortable or not being safe. So that was fun. And yeah, I think we absolutely have to keep in mind that we're a resource for a lot of people. I know I'm on the IGDC tag all the time, and that's where I get a lot of information about what's happening around town, or pre-COVID even. So that oftentimes will tell me like, oh, I need to go check out blah, blah, blah at Union Station. Or so, yeah, I think we'll definitely start doing more of that. It's that funny line, though. You just want to make sure that what you're providing doesn't get people in trouble, or doesn't put people like, I don't want something that we share to cause someone to go out and not have a mask or do something that might hurt themselves. So it's a delicate balance right now.
Totally. Yeah. And it feels like, at least in DC, the last, with COVID and then the protests, which I feel, at least for you and I know we both are in favor of these protests. We feel like they're much needed, but they definitely are, they're a protest and a disruption for a reason. We think good reasons, but it's, it also feels awkward to post or celebrate anything. It's very difficult. I'm in the celebration business, and like it has been so, I feel like everybody's content calendars just got crushed, during this time. And so I think too, I'm totally with you. It's like, it's one of those things. And I think it's one of the few times where, at least for IGDC, where it's like not a for-profit business or something like that, or at least for me, where it's like, my business isn't hinged on Instagram, although it does, make good money for me, like directly. But it's like we can err on the side of not doing something, for the sake of like low risk, or kind of like the idea. My wife and I've been joking about this, which again, of course, every couple's probably got their COVID joke, but it's like, nothing is black and white, or 100% sure, but I want to minimize my own personal risk for me and for others, simple as that, and it's like I have my guidelines, or whatever. And it's weird as an organization to figure that out, and we see kind of like different businesses and, restaurants have to open up, or like, something that's in between, like a FedEx or something like that. Like they're open, right? Things have to be shipped more than ever now, especially with the post office stuff, which we'll talk about after the show, like all this stuff. Like there's that kind of thing, but then there's also, you see like an Apple, kind of thing, where it's like, we all love Apple, we all use their stuff, but it's like, they're figuring it out live. They've opened stores and then been like, nope, we're going to close them, and how can we help people that need these things, especially if kids go back to school virtually, all this kind of stuff. Like, you need laptops and devices and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really interesting, and I've been curious how other communities and businesses and stuff have been pivoting and figuring that out. So no, that makes sense, and that's why you're in charge and not me, because you're like, hey, well, we still have to err on the side of safety, Adam. Which I'm like, no, that makes sense. So that makes perfect sense.
There's a way to do both.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, I think it's really important right now is just to keep encouraging people to stay in their comfort and still be able to find inspiration. Yeah. I walk around my neighborhood a lot, and I try to take new routes, and I always have my phone on me in case I need my camera. So yeah, it's just drives. My dog loves to go in the car. So sometimes I've had enough of the house. I'll put them in the car. Yeah. I'll drive around. Like, I haven't gone to Georgetown in a while. I haven't hit up, Hyattsville. Let's go check out what's happening. Yeah. And we'll just drive, and I'll take my camera and pull over, take a photo if I see something cool. Yeah. And so it's all about just however you can do it, as long as it's safe.
Yeah, no, totally. I feel like that's, most of the listeners for this podcast are probably, photographers and then wedding photographers, but it's like, I'm starting to get asked by venues and planners, what is your COVID plan? And it's like, you don't think of yourself as a business until you get that email, or until you get the like, hey, we need a $2 million certificate of insurance, and you're like, oh, like,
I see your
yeah,
form.
exactly. Like all these weird things. But, I think for us, it's been, again, we have like our personal and we have our professional policies, but it's like, most of our engagement sessions right now are outdoors, not at busy places. And, like the other night, we were talking about this before the show, but it's, we took photos of a couple out at this private beach where there was 5 people, and I even took us to the most private part of it. And it was great. I was like, one, we get to be outside. This is great. I didn't feel super uncomfortable not wearing my mask because they were so far away from me and it was windy. Like it felt almost normal, for like a hot second. And I was like, oh, we just need to make every session like this right now. Like, okay, yeah. But I say that as a guy that lives in a city with like, a lot of people. One last
Yeah, I mean, DC is so great about it because there are so many grand spaces you can still shoot that are outside, like just steps of a federal building, the National Gallery or the Supreme Court. There's lot of gardens, and so there is a lot that's outdoors that we're lucky to have.
Totally. Yeah, I think
so. Yeah, I'm glad you're able to still to pick those back up and just keep going.
Yeah, something.
That's
they
great.
Look different now, but it's something. And
Sure.
I think too, my wife and I, we got rid of our gym memberships, bought bikes, and we've been exploring all the trails and stuff in DC, and that's been super helpful for us too, of like exploring and just getting inspired and not seeing the same monotonous kind of stuff. We're breaking into a new routine, whatever that means for us. But I want to ask kind of one last question, is for people who maybe they did start a hashtag and they really love it, or they want to kind of build something bigger than themselves in an organic way that brings people, when this is over, hopefully brings people together in unity in some way. Or maybe they're not meeting in person. Maybe it's a hashtag that is for online gamers or people who want to stream together or do something like that. What would be your biggest advice for them for starting and to gain traction and momentum for that?
It's the basic function of Instagram is talk to people, type, leave a comment, encourage them to check out what you're doing on your feed, in your hashtag, whatever. There's so many ways to reach people in Instagram now, with stories or just through your feed. So the power of just still being social on the app is really still the gold standard, know? Does that make sense? 100%. I mean, there are times when I go through a lull and I'm just not feeling it, and I don't want to be on the app. I check in maybe once or twice a day, and I'm just not taking photos. I'm posting once a week at the most. But if I get in and I just start talking to people, leaving comments on people's photos, following hashtags and stuff, I find I get so much engagement that way, that it really is still the standard. It seems so simple, but I mean, it's the foundation.
Yeah.
And I think if you feel like you have something that you're trying to get off the ground, just start promoting it to people that you follow or people that are doing similar things. You know, you can always go down that rabbit hole of hashtags and follow something and find those people that you are looking for.
Yeah.
You know, it's all right there in your hand held computer. So it really is as easy as that, but it takes a lot of work. I mean, to sit down and really go through photos and leave substantial comments and thoughts on other people's photos on multiple people. I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort. So, but it's rewarding because people appreciate it and they will check out what you're doing. And, you know, you can see a lot of stuff that doesn't have any interest to you, but you can find a really rich amount of material that is your cup of tea.
No, that makes sense. Like your authentic community and authentic engagement breeds authentic community and authentic engagements.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, hey, Holly, where can people go to find you and check out your stuff and check out your channel, your page, your feed, your home, your reel, whatever, your TikTok? No. And then where can people go to find the IGDC Instagram as well?
So we have a website, igdcofficial.com. My personal account is Go Lightly. If you're a Breakfast at Tiffany's fan, it's based off the Audrey Hepburn character. And I have a personal website, but I don't do anything.
That's all right.
I sadly, shamefully have not updated it with all this time I've had on my hand. But it's hollygarner.space.
I love it.
And IGDC at IGDC is the Instagram handle. At Go Lightly is me. And yeah, we try to keep it going. We don't do as much on Facebook these days because we're not holding many events. So
awesome. Cool.
Kind of dormant right now.
That's all right. That's all right. So is ours. It's all good. Well, thank you so much for being on. That was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Man, what a cool episode, right? I love listening to Holly. She's just so kind, and she is exactly this way in person. I love just, meeting consistent people. Of course, she's an incredible person. The team at IGDC, the people who run it and contribute and help out, they're all just, they're those annoyingly friendly people where they're so friendly and awesome that you're just like, really? Is this really happening? Because they're just so nice. So love those teams, those people. So love those people there, and I would encourage you to go follow IGDC just to see a little bit more about our city. So I would encourage you to go join an Instameet or Instagram community around you, find cool people, start it or join it and contribute. I think it's really, really cool. And if you're in DC, start using the hashtag. Would love to have you in there and see your stuff. So really, really fun. Go check them out. Have a wonderful day, guys. We'll see you at the workshop on September 29th about pricing. Have a wonderful day, guys. Keep being awesome.